4,000 years before Homer wrote the Iliad, before the Bible was assembled, before the tales of Hercules or Achilles were first spoken aloud around a fire, there was Gilgamesh. He was the first hero. His story, carved into clay tablets in a dead language, is the oldest piece of literature ever recovered from the earth. And at its heart is the most human question ever asked: why must we die? Gilgamesh was a real person. Archaeologists have confirmed this. He was king of the Sumerian city of Uruk around 2700 BCE, 5,000 years ago. He was remembered as a great builder, a warrior of legendary power, and a ruler who was 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. The text says his mother was the goddess Ninsun, his father a mortal king. But the historical Gilgamesh became mythological almost immediately after his death, because the questions his story raised were too urgent, too universal to stay buried in history. And so his tale was told, retold, refined, expanded, and eventually inscribed on 12 clay tablets that would be buried under the ruins of Nineveh for thousands of years, until an Assyrian scholar named George Smith cracked their code in London in 1872 and wept when he understood what he was reading. The epic begins with Gilgamesh as a tyrant. He was the most powerful man in the world, and he knew it. He conscripted the men of Uruk into endless labor. He claimed rights over brides on their wedding nights. He was a force of nature given human form, and he was completely unbridled. The gods were petitioned. They sent a solution: a wild man named Enkidu, fashioned from clay, living with the animals in the wilderness, Gilgamesh's equal in strength, meant to be his match. And the plan worked in a way the gods did not expect. Gilgamesh and Enkidu fought when they first met, a battle that shook the city of Uruk. And then, in the middle of that battle, something extraordinary happened. They stopped. They looked at each other. And they became the greatest friends the ancient world had ever recorded. Enkidu civilized Gilgamesh in ways no god had managed. Together they were extraordinary. They went on adventures together, slaying the monstrous cedar forest guardian Humbaba, defeating the bull of heaven sent by the goddess Ishtar in revenge for Gilgamesh's refusal of her advances. They were invincible. They were glorious. They were drunk on their own power and each other's company. Then the gods gathered and made a decision. Enkidu must die. The pair had gone too far, insulted too many divine powers, disrupted too much cosmic order. Enkidu fell ill with a divine curse and died slowly, in agony, over 12 days. Gilgamesh sat with him, held him, and when it was over, Gilgamesh wept. He wept for days. He refused to accept the reality of what had happened, staring at the face of his friend until the maggots forced him to acknowledge the truth. For the first time, Gilgamesh understood death. Not as an abstract concept for others, as something real, as something coming for him too. And so began the first quest for immortality in recorded literature. Gilgamesh set out across the world, past the scorpion people who guard the mountains of sunrise, through a tunnel of absolute darkness 12 leagues long, emerging into a garden where the trees bore jewels as fruit, arriving finally at the edge of the cosmic sea. He sought Utnapishtim, the only human ever granted immortality by the gods, the sole survivor of the Great Flood, the Sumerian Noah. If anyone knew the secret of eternal life, it was him. He found Utnapishtim across the waters of death, accessible only by boat. And Utnapishtim told him, "You cannot have what the gods have. The gods made death for humans and kept life for themselves. There is a plant at the bottom of the sea that restores youth, but even it only delays the inevitable." Gilgamesh dove to the bottom of the ocean and retrieved the plant. He held immortality in his hands. And then, on the journey home, he stopped to rest and bathe in a pool of cool water. A serpent smelled the plant, slithered from the grass and stole it. Shedding its skin as it fled, renewed, immortal, it vanished. Gilgamesh sat on the shore and wept. But the epic of Gilgamesh does not end with despair. On the journey, before Gilgamesh finds Utnapishtim, he meets a tavern keeper named Siduri. She offers him some of the most profound counsel in all of ancient literature. She says, when the gods created humanity, they kept immortality for themselves, but they gave us something in return: let your belly be full. Make each day a festival, day and night, dance and play. Let your clothes be clean and fresh. Let your wife delight in your embrace. Look upon the child who holds your hand. These things are the concern of mortals. Gilgamesh did not listen at first. He was too consumed by grief and fear. But eventually, returning home empty-handed to Uruk, he saw his city. The walls he had built, the first great walls in human history. The temples, the streets, the people. And the text says he began, finally, to take note of the stones at the foundations and the bricks of the wall. To recognize that though he would die, the city would endure. The story would endure. The clay tablets would endure. He was right. After 4,000 years, we are still reading his name. Gilgamesh never found immortality, but in his desperate, heartbroken, magnificent search for it, he gave us something the gods had not anticipated. A story so true, so human, so honest about what it means to love and lose and still go on, that it has outlasted every civilization that has tried to tell it.